Mr. Joe Apfelbaum, welcome to the show, brother.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for having me. Yigal, I love you so much. I adore everything that you do for the Jewish community, for your local community, for your family, and just for the world in general. So thank you for having me on the show. I'm excited about this conversation.
Thank you, brother. So, for those of you who don't know, I know Joe Apfelbaum through my rabbi. My rabbi's wife is your sister,
My older sister,
your
my
older
older
sister.
sister. She's my older sister. She's like, I have to live up to her. So she has 10 kids. I have
Yeah,
five.
yeah, yeah. And they do it amazingly. I don't know. I have three, and whenever my wife and I complain, I just turn around and I say, "Hey, the Srugos," and we just shut up. Like we
Yeah,
just,
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
um, but we
Insanity.
insanity and beauty at the same time. We met
Yeah.
because at some point you came to visit. We were connected online. We went for a walk. I remember the first time in Bonita, and we just saw eye to eye, self development, business. You honored me with being on a show called Small Business Big Leaders many years ago, which connected you to some awesome people. Some great things happened. So I'm excited for this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. I do remember that conversation, and we were walking up the hill, and then we
Yep.
were walking down the hill, and we talked about landmark, we talked about business, we talked about
Yeah.
professional speaking, we talked about coaching. You weren't yet so focused on the whole pawn world.
Correct.
You were kind of like being this general speaker and leader, and yeah, we connected on so many different levels,
It was
especially the
awesome.
Judaism level. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So let's kind of start off. I remember when we were walking up that hill, you told me at some point, you've got this high energy brand. Everything about you is just tons of energy, and you've written books, but it started with you losing a shit ton of weight.
Yes.
Tell us about that
Yeah,
journey quickly.
I grew up like being paid to eat. Like my mother's like, finish your plate, and I will pay you to finish your plate. So I had a financial incentive to shove food down my mouth. Also, even till today, my mother doesn't pay me to eat anymore because my hourly rate's much more expensive. but but she still uses tactics to get me to eat, saying like the food's hot, finish it while it's hot, or she'll say things that makes me feel like, oh my god, I have to finish the entire plate and all the leftovers and everything because haram. I don't know if you
Yeah,
know what that
yeah,
word
of
means,
course
like
I know.
haram. There are people in Africa that aren't eating, like all this type of stuff, and it's just literally a bad habit to finish everything after you're full and just like not want to waste food. Instead, you waste your life.
Yeah,
And so I gained a lot of weight, and it wasn't only because of that. I mean, I was having a lot of subconscious issues in my relationship, and also focusing so much on business that I wasn't focusing on health so much because there are four burners. And depending on where you are in your life, sometimes you're focusing on your health, sometimes you're focusing on your business, sometimes you're focusing on your relationships, sometimes you're focusing on your spirituality or your community. And so for me, I was all business. Like my relationship was like, that doesn't matter. My health, that doesn't matter. Spirituality, it's there, it matters, but like business is number one. Like
yeah.
that was the number one thing. And so I didn't realize, but I was gaining 10 pounds every year from when I got married. Every single year I'd gain 10 pounds, and I was smoking. So weight wasn't only the only issue. I was not exercising because exercise was not something that I valued. It was, I want to work hard, but work hard with my body, it seems like a waste of time.
Yeah.
And so that, because I grew up in an ultra Orthodox world, we don't value that. In yeshiva and school, we don't value exercise. We don't value health. We don't value any of this stuff. Of course, the Torah does tell you to value it, but it's like, focus on being more religious instead of really understanding what does it mean to have a whole life and to be all in. And so I ended up having all these habits, all these thoughts, all these beliefs around food. And I also thought that, if you're not eating a burger with fries and fried chicken and like all that good stuff that I considered good stuff, the delicious stuff, and you're eating a salad, salad's for wimps. Like you're gonna walk in and eat it. No, give me a steak. Give me an 18-ounce tomahawk. Let's just go for it. Let's just go for it. And that's kind of like was my belief and my mindset, my programming. And so I would eat everything. I would literally eat everything, all the wrong things. And by the way, Eagle, I did not know that flour and sugar turned to fat. I thought, oh, that's fat free. Let me eat the whole box of cookies. It's fat free. And so I started to explore that. One day I was sitting on the couch and my kids were running around, and I love videotaping my kids. And I was videotaping them. And after we were watching the video and I heard this like heaving sound, and I asked my then wife, I said, hey, what's that sound? Like, what's that noise in the background? Is there like something? Because I don't hear it. I hear it on the video. She's like, that's you breathing.
Oh.
And at that point, I was already financially successful. I realized I'm going to die. I realized my doctor kept telling me, every friend kept telling me, but I couldn't hear it. I couldn't hear it until I experienced that, like, oh my God, that's how I breathe. And so I realized I had to do something about it. So I called my friends up and I said, hey guys, can you help me? Can you help me with accountability? And they said, sure, let's go to Le Marais. Let's go to a restaurant and talk about it. And after a couple of mains and a couple of sides, I realized you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. They're all overweight. They all don't care about diet. They all don't exercise. And so that wasn't a help. And I asked my former wife, I said, hey, can you help me? And she's like, no, I tried to help you in the past and you're just not going to do it. So I didn't get support from my support system, my built-in support system. My mother's overweight. My father's overweight. My grandparents were overweight. Everyone I know, except for my sister and her, is not overweight. But for the most part, everybody's, overweight. And so I went on Facebook, actually, believe it or not. And I posted on Facebook and I wrote I'm looking to lose weight. I mean, I don't know if anyone here is my friends. And at that point, I didn't really get any engagement on my stuff because I was just selling on Facebook. I was just like posting, oh, you need digital marketing, whatever. And nobody would ever like or comment. And I got 10 likes that night. And I said, oh my God, 10 people care about my weight loss. So I'm going to walk 1 minute per like. And I started walking and eventually running. And eventually that created more conscious. Instead of drinking Snapple and orange juice, I started drinking water. And then I started doing research. I went to Tony Robbins and I read The 4-Hour Body, and I started reading books and really becoming more obsessed with health. And I realized the more healthier I became, the more energy I had. I thought, like most people think, that energy comes from food. If you're hangry, you got to eat more. But that's just like literally gasoline. You can put gasoline on a car and light it up and it'll light up like a flash, but then it'll die quickly. And so that's what sugar is. It's not like that, like energy that will be able to make me do podcast after podcast after podcast seminar without burning out. I ran a half a marathon. The first one that I finished, I ran while I was fasting. I was drinking water, but I was fasting. I didn't drink any food. And I finished the whole thing in 2 hours and 10 minutes. I had electrolytes, I understood, and I had extra fat, and I was in ketosis, and I just ran it, and it felt great. And at the end, I was fine also. I recovered pretty well also. So that taught me, and also all the books and all the research and all the science, is that energy doesn't come from food. Energy comes from your cells, and you have to learn to clean your cells. You need the right level of hydration, because a 5% drop in hydration is a 30% drop in energy. And I say that all the time on social media. And I wrote a book called High Energy Secrets with all the different things that I learned, like, flour, sugar, rice, potatoes, and pasta make you fat. I didn't know that. And all the habits that, so many different habits I had. Smoking is basically just breathing. As soon as I heard that, I quit instantly. Cold turkey, never smoked again, ever. Yeah. And so I learned about stress. What is stress? Stress is literally not breathing. When we are stressed, it's because we're not breathing. Imagine you're in traffic. Car's beeping behind you, you're late for your appointment, and you realize you're going to be 20 minutes late, and you just hold your breath because you're like, oh. All of a sudden, the traffic opens up, you realize you're going to be there 5 minutes early. The first thing you do is like this.
Take a big gasp.
And now you're not stressed anymore because you're going to be there 5 minutes early. No, you're not stressed because you breathed. You're not stressed because you breathe. So if you're stressed, breathe. Don't try to change what's happening. Change what you're doing. Change what you're being. You are being stressed out means you're not breathing. So breath, it's like when the Torah says, like, how did God create human? He says he breathed into his nose. So in from your nose, out from your mouth. If you want the breath of God, you have to breathe in from your nose. If you want a new life, you got to breathe deeper, breathe all the way down, breathe into your kidneys. I'm doing acupuncture now, Yigal.
Nice.
And my acupuncturist teaches me the right posture to breathe with, but also he teaches me how to breathe into my kidneys. And he's like, what do you mean breathe into your kidneys? When you breathe so deep, all the way down to your guts, you actually feel your kidneys moving up a few centimeters if you get really in touch with yourself. And that little movement actually helps you be able to cleanse certain organs inside you and be able to give oxygen to the parts of your body that you typically don't get oxygen to. And that gives me even more energy. So breathing is extremely powerful. As a matter of fact, I hired a vocal coach because I do a lot of public speaking. I'm a professional speaker and I'm a member of the National Speakers Association. And I'm on over 100 podcasts a year. And one of the things that my vocal coach told me I'm doing wrong is she's like, you're mouth breathing. And when you mouth breathe, you actually dry out your vocal cords. And she also said, if you're not drinking a gallon of water a day, your vocal cords are not going to be moisturized. So I'm constantly replenishing my stores of water because I know that if I don't drink enough water, I'm not hydrated, I'm not going to have the energy that I need. When my kids tell me, oh, I'm tired, I was like, how much water did they drink? Nothing. When my clients call me up and they're like, I'm exhausted, I was like, how much water did you drink? Oh, I drank coffee. Well, coffee's a drug. Water is what you need.
For those of you who have listened carefully for like the last 4 minutes, you dropped like 5 energy secrets just right there, right? Stop eating the crap, flour, sugar, rice, potatoes. Yeah. You talked about, exercising, moving your body, talked about drinking water, talked about breath. And I'll tell you a quick story. This last weekend, I went to a mastermind event with Joey Haas. It was incredible. And he taught us how to breathe. And I started to cry. Like so much came out just because I was breathing. It was incredible. Right. Yeah.
And people, instead of breathing air, you know what they're breathing? Food.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're inhaling burgers and pizzas and French fries and egg rolls and all the stuff that I would inhale because I didn't want to deal with my feelings. And a lot of times our emotions make us, if we're repressing emotions or we're not aware of what's going on, we end up just eating just to kind of get that feeling of comfort that we got when we were younger, that fullness. And you can get that fullness from water. People just don't know that their stomach is 32 ounces. And if you fill up your stomach, you're going to feel full. And you can feel full from water. People are like, oh no, I need flour to feel full. I need oil I need 4,000 calories to feel full in each meal. No, you don't need that. That is literally a waste of energy. Did you know that it takes more energy to digest your food for your body than it does to run? From what I heard, like it takes so much energy to digest your food. It does. It has to sit there and send blood to your stomach and like process everything and get all the nutrients out and store fat and all the things that you're doing. That is a process that your body has to go through. So when you're not eating, I haven't eaten anything today and I'm totally fine and I'm totally alive and I'm full of energy and I can go out and run a half a marathon right now. After working for the past several hours and being with my kids and all the stuff that I did today, I'm able to have this level of energy because I'm hydrated.
You talked about having energy, even going through like emotional aspects, right? There's a lot of things that happen in our lives. You told me in the pre-interview, how COVID hit you and your business. You talk about your former wife, your divorce, and which has got to be something that's in the Orthodox world or the religious world where you guys live.
Very taboo.
Very taboo to talk about. We'll talk about that today. How do you keep your energy so high through all of that? That's what I want to hit on today. As men, we are told that we need to provide. We have to be great husbands, great fathers. We've got to be there and still show up with high energy. Yet sometimes our emotions don't allow us to do that. So we show up and we're lethargic. We're eating a bunch of egg rolls, as you mentioned, and crap and not drinking water. We're at work. We're stressed out. How can we go from men who are stressed from life to men who have high energy and can take on the world because that's what we want?
If you want to go from a man that's being stressed to a man that's feeling blessed, I said feeling blessed. So if you're stressed, it's because you're not breathing. If you're not feeling blessed, is because you're not thinking the right thoughts. Our thoughts create our feelings. When you feel something, it's not because something happened, it's because how you perceived what happened. And often we are perceiving things through the lens of our wounds. We've been wounded before, so we have a certain bias to how we perceive something. Someone cuts us off. Well, once upon a time, we were treated poorly by someone and it kind of looked like the person that cut us off. So it must mean that that person is in cahoots with the person that treated us badly. And now we're an animal and we're road raging and we're cutting people off and putting our whole family at risk. Take a deep breath. Regulate yourself. When I punish my kids, there is no punishment. It's discipline, and discipline is regulation. There's a book called 1, 2, 3 Magic. So what does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to have energy? For everybody, their baseline energy is different. My baseline energy might be a little bit higher than other people. But when people are around me, they get infected by my energy. They get enthusiastic like I am. Often employees will walk into my office and they'll be like, I don't know what's going on. But when I'm in Joe's presence, I feel like $1 million. I feel I can take over the world. Because that's how I feel. I feel like I could literally do anything, be anything, have anything, because I understand the power of my mind. I understand the power of my emotions. Now, the reason why we are trained to put on tefillin on our head and on our hands, which is the phylacteries, the religious straps that people put on, is because we want to be able to take our heart and we want to be able to correlate it with our mind, because our heart always just beats. Our heart's always just beating. So if you're in a state of beating, if you're in a state of gratitude, if you get into that zone and you get your mind to be in the state connected to your heart, then you're able to be present and you're able to connect with God. You're able to connect with the universe. You'll be able to connect with yourself. If your mind is going crazy and you're stressed out, worried about what you're trying to control, because ultimately whatever we're worried about, it's because we're trying to control something in the future. Yeah. Or you're worried about something that happened in the past. Oh, someone did something, so it means something. No, it doesn't mean anything. It's all the history. It's all the past. It's not what's going on right now. It's all a story. If we start realizing that and noticing that and kind of surrendering to our heart, surrendering to our beat, surrendering to God, surrendering to our breath, when we surrender and we connect and we have faith that whatever happens in our life is for our good, when we have faith that wherever we are right now is exactly where we need to be, when we have faith enough to totally be present with our kids, the greatest gift is being present with your kids, with your family, with your loved one, and ultimately with yourself. But we forget that presence. I used to not have this level of energy because I wasn't able to be here. When I'm with kids, with my kids, they jump around like animals. What's going on? How do you have so much energy? It's because they're here now. If they were worried about what's going to happen tomorrow, that's when kids get depressed.
I love that. That's
Depression
incredible.
is when you are not here. If you are here with me, 100% all in, and you're tuned into your breath, you will have the best sex of your life. But if you're not, if you're worried about what am I supposed to do, and when I say sex, it means anything. The best prayer of your life, the best meal of your life, the best relationship with your audience, the best public speaker. I just went there because I wanted to give a little bit of a shock factor to people, because that word is so taboo, and I want to talk a little bit about that word and what does it mean to be a man. But ultimately, most men are so busy trying to be men, they forget to be.
I love that.
You're so busy trying to be a man, trying to be the provider, trying to be the protector, trying to be the person who's everyone is expecting you to be, and you forget to be who you really are, which is just present, which is just conscious, which is just aware, which is noticing your thoughts and optimizing the ones that used to serve you but no longer serve you. There's so many thoughts and habits and beliefs, and I call this a mindset. There's so many mindsets that have been built for us as a gift for us to get past our teenage years, but you're no longer a teenager. There are so many mindsets that made us survive as a 9-year-old, but we're no longer a 9-year-old. We forget that we're not 9, and we just try to protect our ego, like as if somebody stabs our ego, we're going to die, and we all like, you mess with me, you know what I'll do to you? No, that's what happened when we were teenagers. We needed that. And often we forget that we're no longer teenagers, and we end up getting back into that, and we end up getting into fights. We end up getting into disagreements. We end up having resentment. We end up having all these low vibration energies. And let me tell you something. If you want to vibrate high, if you want to feel high energy, you have to understand the levels of vibration, which joy and enthusiasm and gratitude is on the top. And anger and depression and guilt is on the bottom. So if you're feeling depressed, it's because you're thinking about yourself. And you're thinking about what you don't have and how bad things are for you. And if you're thinking of joy and freedom, it's because you're giving. The secret to living is giving. Giving to yourself. You got to fill up your own cup. When I make Kiddush on Shabbos, I make Kiddush for my kids. On Shabbos, I fill up my own cup. When I make Havdalah, I fill up my own cup and I hold my own cup. And my blessings don't come from my cup. My blessings come from the way that my cup spills out of the Havdalah and falls into a bowl. And then I take the candle, extinguish it onto the bowl, and everyone gets the blessings from the bowl. And if my daughters drink from my cup, they get a mustache. Just stay the hell away from my cup.
As I said, high energy, right? Joe,
vibration, high vibration. And if you're worried about the fact that you're not a man enough, or that these salads are for women, or like all this types of stuff, then you're never going to be vibrating high. If you're worried about the opinions of other people, which, by the way, the opinions of other people are none of your business. If you get into things that are none of, you get into gossip, you're going to fail. You're not going to scale. You're not going to feel blessed. You're going to feel depressed. And I want you not to feel stressed and not to feel depressed. I want you to feel high energy. But you're going to be like, well, all these bad things are happening in my life. There is no good or bad when things happen. That's something that you define as good or bad. There's only what happened. There's only what happened and how you perceive what happened. And if you realize and truly believe that everything happens for the good and for your benefit, you will start finding how that happens for your benefit. And when you find it, you'll actually be in joy. Like if a client did not sign up for my service, I'm like, thank God that didn't happen. Thank God that didn't happen. Because you imagine if he signed up and then wanted a refund, or if he signed up and then we had to deal with whatever. And then when a client signs up, I'm like, thank God he signed up. We needed the cash flow. So like I started, like right when we got separated, as like you're like, oh, how do you stay high energy when you're getting separated? I felt terrible. I felt completely down. And I was worried about what is everybody going to think? I'm a miserable failure. I'm the successful CEO, built one of the fastest growing companies in the US. I'm a networker. I'm out there. I'm a professional speaker, author, all this stuff. And now I'm a divorced guy. I'm a separated guy with a broken relationship. Like what? What's going on over here? Poor kids, right? And I started thinking to myself all these thoughts that were not in line with my power. And I was out of energy. And I was down on myself. And then I hired a coach to help me be able to kind of see a different perspective. Because if you're in the jar, you cannot read the label. And sometimes you need someone else to pick up a mirror and show you, hey, you're actually amazing, Joe. You're actually incredible. And this is the best thing that could ever happen to you because there's so much generational trauma that got you to this point. Your parents, their parents, you don't know what type of a relationship they had. And if there's a broken relationship and they just keep it for the sake of society to just think that they're important,
for sure.
Then the kids know that and see that and learn that and live that and bring that to their kids. So if I want to break that generational trauma, hey, if it's not working, I know this is not the most popular thing, even though 50% of marriages end in divorce in the United States, it's still not acceptable for many people. And they'd rather live in pain and not have to go through that stigma that there happens to be, which is a lot less now than it was when I was a kid. It's much more accepted. My son was telling me that in his best friend's class, 90% of the kids, 9 out of 10 kids, he has 30 kids in his class, 9 out of 10 kids either has a parent that died or a parent that got divorced.
Wow.
And in his class, it's not the same. But on average, it's 50%. And I see it in my own synagogue. People get divorced, they get remarried, and then they're happy. Yeah. Even though many of those marriages end in divorce. But if you do the work in between, you're able to, and there are 4 types of relationships that people get into throughout their life. There's the starter marriage, there's the parenting marriage, there's the personal development marriage, and then there's the soulmate marriage. And not everybody marries their soulmate. It's something that you both have to grow into and be able to accept yourself. And who I was at 21 when I got engaged and who I am at 42 is not the same person, and neither is she. And so if we can be better co-parent without us stepping on each other's toes and not living together anymore, maybe that's for the best. And now it's not a maybe that's for the best. That's the best possible thing, the best possible outcome for everyone, including the kids. And so it's a very powerful way to shift your mindset. And now I'm thanking God. My parents thank God. Everybody thanks God because this is a good thing. This is not just like, oh, it's a bad thing that happened. And people message me on Instagram and they're like, Joe, how is this a good thing? This is a bad thing. Like your relationship didn't work out. It's a bad thing. I was like, no, what's bad is staying in a relationship that's not working. Yeah. And after trying to make it work for a decade and it's still not working and getting worse, and the kids are getting older and they're not stupid, they can see exactly that it's not working. Why would you want to put them through that? They're like, but it's much more traumatic for the parents not to be together. I was like, no, actually, it's much more traumatic for the parents to be together and not get along and not love each
100%.
other.
Yeah. I think that you mentioned a couple of things I want to go back to, which is one is being yourself, right? Like being true to yourself and knowing that and being grateful for what's going on. You said, if I don't sign up a client, I'm grateful I didn't sign up that client. If I did sign up a client, there's gratitude there. And a lot of times we go through life, especially as Jewish men, with these expectations on us, right? I just had Robert Glover on the last episode, and we talked about being a good guy. Like everyone talks about, like, oh, you got to be a mensch. Well, what the hell does that mean? Does that mean staying in a marriage where I hate myself, I hate my partner? Does that mean, being overweight because I'm so emotionally damaged, I'm just shoveling food into my mouth? What does it mean?
Yeah, it's a very, very powerful question. And everyone has to find that for themselves. What does it mean? What are your values? What do you value? What life do you want to create? What does it mean for you to be who you can be? How you can be all in on your life? There's something called an internal purpose, and there's something called an external purpose. Your internal purpose, and I write about this in my book, High Energy Purpose, because a lot of entrepreneurs, they come to me and they say, Joe, how do I find my purpose? Like, I made a lot of money and I hang out with a lot of people that are very wealthy. And they say, no matter how much money I make, I'm still not feeling fulfilled. And I said, success and fulfillment are not the same thing. Success means set a goal. You wanted to be financially free. You wanted $50 million. You got to your goal. And now you're financially free because you said $50 million is financially free. So now you got to success. But $50 million doesn't mean it's going to fulfill your heart. Doesn't mean that you're going to feel good about yourself. Doesn't mean you're going to feel like a man, whatever that means. And so ultimately, what you need to do is you need to define success, and then you need to discover fulfillment. Fulfillment is not something that you can define. Oh, if I paint, I will feel fulfilled. No, you're not a painter. Like, you're terrible at painting. Stop trying to paint. I've seen giraffes paint. I took my kids to a safari, and everyone's like,
elephants paint.
Giraffe is painting. I'm like, the giraffe's not painting. The giraffe just wants the lettuce that you're going to give it if it takes the toothbrush and shoves it around and makes a mess, okay? And everyone's like, oh no, the giraffe is talented. And the giraffe's not talented. It's hungry. It's freaking hungry. Give it the lettuce, and trust me, if you give it the lettuce to shake his butt, he's going to shake his butt.
He's going to be Van Gogh.
Yeah, exactly. For the lettuce, for the maror, I was feeding it maror. It was phenomenal. I paid $5 to feed the giraffes. They're so tall. They're almost like 20 feet tall. It's amazing. And so, what I tell people is you got to discover who you are. So discovering your values, discovering your strengths, discovering your wounds, figuring out why you are who you are is so important. And going through that process is very painful. It's a very painful process.
Let me stop you here, because the question that came up right away before we go, down further is how. Right? Businessmen, we're fathers, husbands, community. So much shit is put onto us. The question is, how do we discover that?
It's taking a step back and having awareness. So awareness is not something that we all have because we're so in our feelings. Our ego, our identity does not allow us to become aware. Because if you have awareness, then you end up not doing. A lot of the times we get awareness and we realize, holy crap, that's not going to work. So we end up not doing. If you knew something wasn't going to work, would you do it? Let's be honest.
No, if I knew it was going to fail for sure, you
wouldn't do it. But you need the failure in order to succeed. So how are you supposed to ever succeed? So if you have too much awareness, it's also not good. If you know for a fact the statistics that it's not going to work, you're not going to do it. But you need the crash. You need to fall in order to walk. But if you know you're not going to be able to walk the first 50 times, you're not going to want to fail. You're going to try to find and be smart and find a way to walk. So you're going to end up getting a machine, tying it to your feet, and walking with the machine. Now you never learned how to walk. Oh, but I'm walking without trying. I'm smarter. No, you're not smarter. You're a butterfly with crooked wings because you didn't go through the cocoon. And so part of it is hiding. It's a gift. Our lack of awareness is actually a gift because we try to power through, and then we get awareness through the powering through. And then hopefully through that powering through, we actually build certain strengths, certain muscles that allow us to be able to impact lives and make a difference.
Is there fear in awareness? Let me ask this question. When you realize that, like, wow, this marriage isn't going to work, or wow, I'm not meant to be, because you're a rabbi, right? You went to Israel, you got the certificate, you showed it to me once, I remember, and where you realize, like, wow, I'm not going to go down that path. sometimes fear comes up in that. Like, oh, I made a mistake. I wasted all this time. Did I fuck it up? What happened?
100%. So much fear. So much fear. And fear is a feeling, just like love is a feeling. It's like a very, very base feeling. And so some of it is, fear has 10 different ways that it'll show up in your life. Some of it, sometimes it'll show up as loneliness. Sometimes fear will show up as frustration. Sometimes fear will show up as guilt. Sometimes fear shows up in many, many different ways. But fear is a very, very powerful emotion that makes us not take action. And so, yes, awareness can cause a tremendous amount of fear when you start realizing that, holy crap, maybe I'm an idiot. Maybe I'm an imposter. Maybe I don't deserve this. Maybe all these thoughts. And that's why you have to balance the fear with action. Taking action in spite of fear doesn't make you crazy. It makes you courageous. Courage doesn't mean you don't have fear. There's no one that's fearless. There are people that are courageous because even though they have the fear, they take what I call is unreasonable action. If you try to make it reasonable, it's not going to make sense. Sometimes you have to take action that is unreasonable, that makes no sense, but you know it's the right thing because success leaves clues. If you see someone else taking a certain action and to you that action doesn't make sense, but you know that action created that result for them, it makes sense to still take that action even though the action is unreasonable. And so taking action, even if sometimes you'll be like, well, it's very likely that I'm going to fail, but I still need to make the call. I still need to show up. And 90% of success is showing up. So many people don't show up to their lives, don't show up to their marriages because they're afraid their marriage is going to fail. So many people don't show up is because they're afraid of failure. They're afraid of looking bad. They're afraid of not making it. They're afraid of all the things that the ego makes us afraid of. And all those things are normal. And many of them actually protect us. The fear of dying protects us from jumping out of an airplane or jumping in front of a train or eating some venomous something that's going to hurt us. So that fear, but fear stands for false evidence that appears real. All fear is based on fake reality. If you're afraid of a dog, I used to be afraid of dogs. Look at their sharp teeth. Arr, look at the way they growl. Arr, they're gonna murder me. Arr. What are you talking about? It's a little dog. Like you go walk over to put your hand in its mouth. It's not gonna bite you. It's just not. It's not gonna bite you. And even if it bites, it's just gonna kind of like taste and nibble. It's not. So I built a relationship with dogs and realized my whole fear of dogs was based on me growing up in a religious community that dogs are looked bad at. Ultimate dogs are just like, ew, they're tameh, they're impure. But dogs are just kelev, kol lev, all heart. They're just little hearts walking around that are just in love with the world. And I had to discover that myself through doing something that had a stigma, having a dog in the office. And people looked like, oh my God, look at him now. He has a dog. He's not religious anymore. He has a dog. Like, what are you talking about? It's a dog, and in Europe, everybody had dogs, but somehow when people came to America, they were like, no, dogs are bad because Americans have dogs. So it's like this weird thing, but ultimately there's so many fears that we have about how we look. Is that what a man would do? Like if a man's not getting laid, that means he's not a man. Like, what are you talking about? Who decided that? Who decided that you need to be, whether you're married or whatever situation you're in, who decided that you need to be getting it constantly in order for you to be a man? But we're programmed like that. Yes. We're programmed that if we're not desired, if we're not wanted, if we're not useful, then we're useless.
And even to the point, Joe, where I remember, the older men in my life, it's if you're not desired by the woman in your life, then go find someone who'll desire you. I was told by people in my community, like, oh yeah, if you're not getting it with your wife, if you're not having enough sex, just, go pay for sex, go get a hooker or go find a girlfriend. It's okay. Like, just feel the desire, then come home and be okay with your wife and your kids. I'm like, that makes no fucking sense whatsoever to me.
It makes no sense based on your values because you have upgraded your values and because you've gotten a certain level of awareness and you know who you are. But for most people, they are willing to give up their values to get their needs met. Everybody has basic human needs. Like Abe Maslow has a hierarchy of needs. Mm-hmm. And in the basic human needs, water is one of those needs. Sleep. If you're sleep deprived, I don't care what your values are. You are not keeping your values. You are going to do whatever you can to get that sleep. Even if it means breaking Shabbos to get to sleep, because if you don't sleep, you will die. Yeah. And we're allowed to break Shabbos to die, to survive from death. And so what I always tell people is like, you got to look at your needs. If you're not getting your basic needs met, if you're not feeling secure, if you don't feel any life security in your relationship, if you don't have trust, you're going to try to find that security somewhere else. And it's not really so much about sex or about, hookers or about any of that stuff. It's more around you just feeling complete. And so when I do the work with people, with CEOs, with executives, with entrepreneurs, with other men or with women, and I'm sitting there, my goal is not to get them to become something else. My goal is to help them see who they really are so that they can actually be complete with who they are. And from a place of completion, from a place of surrender, from a place of acceptance. And when you really love yourself, it doesn't mean you're arrogant. It means that you see who you really are. When I look in the mirror and I smile and I'm like, I used to hate what I look like. I used to say, slap that shitty smile off your face. I used to look at myself and be like, who the hell is this guy? Now I look at myself, I'm like, look at him. Look how amazing he is. He's so lovable. I love that guy. I love him. I love everything about him. But I used to not be like that. And most people don't like what they sound like, don't like what they look like. It's 3 times harder to be positive than it is to be negative. It is 3 times harder to be positive. So it's hard work, just like exercise is hard work, just like building muscle is hard work. So often, it's painful to be positive because there's a concept called toxic positivity where something bad happens and suddenly you're like, oh, no, that was good. No, there's a limit to that. If someone loses an arm, you don't say, oh, thank God I lost my arm. No, you don't do that. If a house burns down and people die, you can mourn that. It's normal to mourn that. It's normal to, but if someone gets divorced, and you're like, hang on a second. Actually, my life is 70, 100 times better now than it was when I was in a relationship that wasn't working. It's not toxic positivity to say that I'm feeling much happier and full of joy now. My kids are happier and everybody's happier. And even the in-laws, everybody's happier.
Is it safe to say, and I wrote this down when you said it, when you're complete, that's when you have high energy. When you
cannot have high energy when you're being weighed down by the bricks of your own subconscious. Actually, I was talking to this guy recently and he said, oh, debt weighs me down. I said, where does it weigh you down? He's like, it's such a pain in the neck, pain in my shoulders, pain in my back. I was like, hang on a second. The debt where do you have sacks of debt on your back? He's like, no. I just feel it on my neck, like choking me. It's choking me. I was like, how is the debt choking you? It's what you make debt mean that chokes you. The wealthiest people have the most debt because that's their way of avoiding taxes. They just take debt against their collateral and now they could live now and Uncle Sam doesn't charge them taxes on the money they pull out on appreciation. Like what the hell? They have a $10 million property. They paid $1 million for it. They don't want to sell it because then they'll have to pay taxes. They take $9 million out in cash and they get to use all that money to keep making money and growing and buying other real estate and keep doing that. Like what? Tax-free? Yes, and then the people that are making $30K a year, they have to pay half to Uncle Sam. What is going on? So that's just the reality of how it works. Debt is not bad. There is no thought that is a bad thought. There's only things that have integrity and lack integrity. And so if you want to have joy, you got to figure out what's weighing you down. If you want to have gratitude, you got to figure out what's stopping you from having gratitude.
As men, in a relationship or not, in a community, in the Jewish community, we talk about fear. We've talked about being out of integrity because there's so much pressure that puts on who we need to be, who we have to be. I remember when my mom would say, oh, you'd be an amazing doctor, right? I don't want to be a doctor. That's the last thing I want to be in my life. But there's so much pressure put on us as Jewish men to be a certain way that when we're not that way, we feel this contraction, right? We feel like this sense of that we're just not who we are. How did you go from going to Israel, being a rabbi, being 60 pounds overweight or however much weight it was, to saying, F it, I just need to be me? Because that's what I think the gold is here, right? All these high energy secrets, incredible, but there's guys listening to this saying like, man, Joe, I want to be like you. I want to be able to just say, this is me. Like, and if you're watching this, because this is on YouTube also, like Joe's eyes light up. He's just full of energy. And if you follow him on Instagram, which you should, and LinkedIn, he's running and there's you get this big ass smile on your face. And sometimes I'm looking at like, how the hell is he smiling? Right. But it's because
people say, is that real or is that a mask?
Yeah.
And I say, when I'm on Instagram, I don't look at myself when I post it. A lot of people will take a photo, look at their photo, and if it looks good and they add a few filters, I'm just raw in the moment.
Yeah.
I don't look at it. I don't review it. I post it because I know if I review it, I'll judge it and I won't post it. And so, yes, I have the little judge talking somewhere, but when I'm not in that judge and I'm all in, when I'm fully in for my people, for my kids, for my family, I know my mother watches it, my kids watch it, I'm in for them. You know, the biggest fear that people have is that they're not good enough.
Yeah.
That's the biggest fear that, especially men, especially Jewish men, they're not good enough. And we're trained for, you know, like, oh, if you're not doing this, you're bad. If you're not doing that, we're never accepted and loved just for being, just for existing. We're never honored just for existing. And you existing is not enough. You got to do the Torah and you got to do the mitzvahs and you got to do the this and you got to eat the chalent and you got to provide and you need to give. And if you're a man that doesn't provide, you're not a man. Who the hell are you? And then, and we're constantly trained and taught that you don't have value just as a human being.
Yeah.
You don't have value for just being, for just showing up. You're extra weight. That's all ego. Ego stands for etching God out. God doesn't care what you accomplish. God doesn't care who you decided to be based on the good deeds that you did. Because everyone's trying to do good deeds so that they get into heaven. That's what everyone's trying to do. Oh my God, I'm going to get into heaven faster than you. Oh, actually, you just lost some points there by trying to get there faster. You know what I mean? And when you get to heaven, you realize that you were climbing up the wrong ladder because you were stepping on people's heads to try to get to heaven.
Yeah.
Now, the biggest fear is that people just feel like they're not enough. And the biggest desire that people have is to be loved and accepted. So if you feel like you're not enough, you're never going to be vibing on high energy because your basic human needs are not met. And if you don't love yourself and you're waiting for someone else to love you, it's kind of like saying people like, oh, I just want to fall in love. And I always tell people when they say that to me, I say, love is not a hole that you fall into.
Yeah.
Love is something that you create by loving yourself, because the flower does not sit there begging the bee to come pollinate. The flower blossoms and the bee comes. So I want you to be. I want you to start loving yourself, seeing the good in yourself. And it's hard for people. It's a process you have to go through. You have to go through that process to really love yourself. And if you can really love yourself and not feel like it's arrogant, I'm not saying be arrogant and boast about the things that you haven't accomplished yet. Tell everyone, oh, I'm wealthy. Here's my Lamborghini. And you're leaning over a neighbor's Lamborghini in a different neighborhood that you don't even live in. No, I'm not telling you to get an Airbnb and make believe it's your office and like make videos for YouTube telling people to join your course. No, I'm not telling you to do that. What I am telling you is to recognize that what you've accomplished till today by just being yourself is pretty freaking amazing. You know, I used to look at myself and say, oh, I built one of the fastest growing companies in America. That's not amazing. That's garbage. Like, who cares? Like, who cares if I doubled my business 3, 4, 5 years in 5 years in a row? Who cares? Who cares if I publish 5 books? Who cares? Like, who cares? I'm an idiot. Everyone publishes books, right? I can see that. And I can say, oh my God, I went from being afraid of networking to becoming a master connector. I went from being afraid of public speaking and being shy to being able to just rock the microphone. I went from being a person who was married in a terrible relationship, which I didn't enjoy very much, and neither did she, to having the courage to change it, to make a difference, to transform it to something that where we can really be there for the kids instead of, you know, always not being there for the kids, like because we're so pressured to try to fit in and it's just not working out. So if I don't love myself, and if you don't love yourself, you cannot love somebody else, because the saying is, v'yahavta l'reacha kamoicha. And what that means is love your fellow like you love yourself. You cannot love your fellow if you do not love yourself. And most people have a very, very, very difficult time loving themselves because they do not understand what it means, or they don't even know who themselves is. When you lack the awareness of the fact that God is you, that that have God within you, like you have a piece of God within you, that godliness, that awareness is within you. When you become like you have the awe, you suddenly have awe. You're like, oh my God, it's within me. It's within me, and it's within every human being. So I have to respect every human being and love every human being with enthusiasm. And if you can't do that, if you're just judging other people,
beautiful,
that's not your higher self. You got to tune into that. If you want enthusiasm, love, energy doesn't come from like matter. Energy is separate from matter. We know this. You can measure it. You can look at it. And so if you want more energy, higher energy, you got to understand what energy is. You got to connect with energy instead of focusing on all the things you have. You got to be. Being is a whole different world than judging and doing. Being is a different platform. It's a completely different way of existence. And so most people don't understand the difference between doing and being, because they think if they only had all the things that they desired, then they would be able to do the things they want to do, and then they would be able to be happy. But it's the other way around. You first need to be the person you need to be in order for you to do the things you need to do so that you can have all those. And you got to turn it on its head. But common sense is not common practice.
Joe, you're a badass. And the reason I said is because I posted the other day on LinkedIn and I said that you cannot lead without opening your mouth. And one thing that you've done so well is express yourself and what you want, what you need. And sometimes you'll get stuck, right? Like we've talked about this before. But I think that one of the biggest reasons that men don't achieve that high energy, that higher self, is because they shut their mouth and they don't talk about like, I am not happy. I am not feeling good. And we go out with our friends, like you mentioned, 45 minutes ago that you guys went to L'Emarais and ate a bunch of shit. Like you go with your friends and they're like, oh yeah, it's okay. It's going to be fine. As opposed to saying like, no, you're a jackass. Let's go. Let's move. Let's be, instead of just thinking.
And most people are uncomfortable with that. Most people are uncomfortable with just literally meditating, with just literally being in flow. I love being in flow. I love being in flow. But I used to not do it because I was so busy doing things and thinking. And also, people don't even understand what meditation even is. People don't even understand what flow is. They don't understand how to be like water and just flow. They don't understand that concept. And that's something we need to be taught. It's something we need to practice. It's something we need to understand and learn. And often it's very difficult for us to understand this because it's not a productive thing to do. And not everything that is beneficial in life is productive. I used to be afraid of rapping, Yigal. I don't know if you know this, but I used to be afraid of rapping. And now I'll just pop on a random beat, and I'll be like, yo, check my flow. I used to be afraid to rap. Now I really don't give a crap because other people's opinions are none of your business. Doesn't have to rhyme. It could just go with the flow because I got Yigal. He knows how to grow because he wants to do all the things for this fellow Jew. He knows how to bring it. I know how to sing it. Now I can go from San Diego all the way to New York and I vibe like a truck, like I don't give a I like it to keep it clean. I like to be mean like a green machine. You know me. And I can just keep going on and on because I am in flow. Other people's opinions don't matter to me. Let me tell you something. You have the players and you have the fans. You have the players in the game. The players in the game are playing the damn game. And the fans have opinions. Lots of opinions. Some of the fans love you. Some of the fans hate you. Some of the fans are yelling at you and you did something good and they're cheering now. And then you did something bad and they're yelling at you and the pressure's on. But the players, they don't care about what the fans are saying because they're in the game. And the question I have for you listening to this right now is, are you in the game or are you worried about the opinions of your parents in the stands? Are you in the game or are you worried about all the people worrying like, oh, is he driving that car? Is he married to that woman? Is he getting it? Is he not getting it? No, those are the fans. They're not playing your game. Your game, you're either in it or you're not in it. And if you're not in it, you are not going to continue to play. And you need to be in it. You need to practice when you're alone, when no one else is watching, because right now everyone's watching. But I've been practicing while nobody's watching. Yeah. And that's why I got pretty good at my game. Think about that. I'm in the game, baby. I'm in the game and I'm ready to play.
This has been gold, brother. We're gonna end it off here because you and I we can go on for hours. And I think the guys listening just need to really take this in, like be in the game. And one other thing, the players are there and guess who's making the money and guess who's paying to be there, right? The guys on the field are making the money. They're signing $100 million contracts. And the guys in the stands are paying $1,000, season tickets or nosebleeds, whatever that is. So Joe, how can people find you, my friend? We've talked about Instagram, LinkedIn, and your books. You've got in the background, High Energy Networking, which people can buy on Amazon. Check Joe out. He is a force to be reckoned with. So Joe, where can people find you?
If you want to see me on LinkedIn, that's the easiest way to hit me up because I have all my stuff on there. Go to joelinkedin.com. It makes it really easy to find me from any browser. You just go to Joe, linkedin.com. Definitely send me a message. Let me know you heard me on this. Connect with me. You can connect with me on Instagram. You can send me a DM on Instagram. My name is Joe Apfelbaum. I'm easy to find. You can Google me. You can Amazon me. It's a thing. You can Amazon someone and find their books. But I just want to say, reach out to me. Literally, if you heard this, take a moment to take the next step. And I want to encourage you because networking is about connecting, not about selling. It's about building relationships and getting to know people because if you heard this, it was meant to change your life. It was meant to transform you into the person you want to be. And so part of that is reaching out and connecting to other people so that you can vibrate on their level. Human beings are mirrors. We mirror each other. And so I want to encourage you to upgrade your network because your network is your net worth, both in quantity and quality. So I'm looking forward to connecting with you, getting to know you, and helping you take your life and your business to a whole new level.
Love it. Joe, and I want to give you something. I'd love to bless you with strength and courage, my friend, as we say here on Tribesmen. Join us, everybody who's listening on the Tribesmen Facebook group at Tribesmen Jewish Men Leading, and stay tuned for the next episode.